Okay guys, so welcome back to my channel. Thank you for always coming back, and if you're a new person in our channel, kindly do it to subscribe. You are going to need this channel throughout your stay in ALS Africa. Alright, so kindly do it to subscribe to this channel. Now, I'm sure that this is one of the tasks that as you begin your ALS journey is going to look very strange, but you are at the right place. Just taking a deep breath, and I'm going to walk you through this process, and at the end of this video this task is going to look very seamless and easy to you. One thing I would need you to know is that now you are a software engineer, so see yourself as a software engineer. Now this project is to help you develop your mind as a software engineer. Alright, now before you can go ahead to do any actual project, first you will need to do a pseudocode, and then you will need to draw an algorithm or a flowchart for whatever project you want to do. And that simply is writing down the steps of what your project is going to be, how you intend to start your project, and how you intend to end your project. That is exactly what this task is all about. So in this task, we are going to be looking at pseudocode, we'll look at algorithm and flowcharts, these three concepts. All right. Now, pseudocode, just like the name implies, pseudo is like a false code saying it is not a programming language. It is not a programming language. All right. So it's a false code, and because it's a false code, it's a code that anyone will be able to look at it and interpret what you are trying to do. For instance, you are doing a project for someone that is not a technical person. You need to write pseudocode in order to be able to explain to them in a way they will understand, because they cannot understand your programming language. All right, so that's the need for pseudocode. And flowchart or algorithm basically is just a step-by-step process of how you intend to finish the project. Let's say, for instance, you want to make coffee. So the process can be, you grab a cup, grab your coffee, tear open your coffee, put it in the cup, pour some water, stir it up, and drink. So that's like the process of making a coffee. So in software engineering, flowchart helps us to represent our workflow in a set of diagrams. So for a flowchart, flowchart is a type of diagram that visually represents a workflow or process, using a set of diagrams or icons to denote different actions, decisions, steps within the process. All right. So for a flowchart, it helps us with the help of a diagram to see that, okay, these are the processes, the steps we need to follow from start to where we will end our project. All right. And then for algorithm, it's just an organized logical sequence. All right, an organized logical sequence of the actions or the approach towards a particular problem. So like I said, it's just a step-by-step process. I am taking my cup first, cutting out the lid, pour my coffee inside the cup, pour some water, stir it up. That's the process of making a coffee. You cannot just say, take the cup and drink my coffee. So there's a step-by-step process to you being able to drink in your coffee. All right. So that is what an algorithm represents. Now, we are going to go through just some common use ISO 5807 symbols. So for flowchart, it's not just for software engineers. Flowchart can be used by anybody in any discipline, just to represent what they are trying to do. And then for these symbols, we have to follow them the way they are. So for you to start your project in a flowchart, you must start with the terminal or the terminator. The terminal or the terminator, you must start with that. All right. And then the arrow line helps you to show the flow of the project. Okay, so the arrowhead helps you to show where is the project from and where is it going to, where is it leading to. So that's what you use the arrow for. The rectangle helps you to show the process. So the process, this is the process, this is what we are doing. And then the data is like the input and output, so it helps you to show input and output. And then we have the decision slash conditioner and document and all that. So we are going to see how all this works. I don't want this video to be too long. You can actually read to understand everything here. It's well explained. All right, so you can read to understand everything, the signs, the symbols, and the shapes and what they do. All right, so as we progress in the course of this video, I will be telling us why we're using which diagram for what. All right, so but just know that for you to start your project, you're going to need this. You're going to need this to start your project, and to end your project, you're going to need this. And for any process, you're going to use the rectangle for any process you want to initiate. All right, so you're going to use the rectangle. And then for data input, for data output, you're going to use this. For data input, for data output, you're going to use this. And then for decision or conditional statement, if you're putting like if statement, if else statement, you are going to need this. All right, I think those are the basic ones we're going to use for this project. So you can take your time to go through it yourself if you want to. All right, so just so we don't make this video too long, let's jump into the project. I will walk us through the quiz, and then we'll enter the task proper. All right, so we'll go to our project, and we'll go to map your mind. Okay. So let me just show us. So is pseudocode a programming language? The answer is no. Like I said before, it's not a programming language. It's just a way to represent what and what we want to do. Question 1. Which of the following statement is true about pseudocodes? Number 1. Pseudocode improves the readability of any approach. That's correct. It's simply an implementation of an algorithm in the form of annotations and informative text written in plain English. That's correct, because pseudocode is written in plain English, not programming language. It acts as a bridge between the programmer and the algorithm. That's correct, because we're going to use pseudocode in order to be able to develop an algorithm for our workflow. All right. So that is all for the quiz question. So question 0 is no, and then question 1, you select everything. All right, let's go ahead and look at our task. So our first task says being a square keeps you from going around in circles. So the question is to develop an algorithm. Let's say calculate the sum of squares of given input of numbers. You are going to create a flowchart and pseudocode. So for this task, we're going to create a flowchart, and then we're also going to create a pseudocode. We're creating a flowchart, and then we'll create pseudocode we'll create a pseudocode first, then we'll create the flowchart. All right. So create the algorithm in a flowchart. Save a screenshot and upload it to Google Drive and give access to anyone with a link. We say create pseudocode in a Google Doc and give access to anyone with a link. Okay. So the first thing we want to do now is to create, we'll create our our pseudocode. So we're going to pick our Google Docs. So let's go to our drive, and I'll just pick my doc. So I will use a new document. So let me title this document. What's the name of the task now we're doing? Being a square keeps you around in a circle. So let me use this as a 0 task. Let me use this as my document name. Okay, first, what we need to do is to type in the name of our project. So I'll just say 0 dot. Okay. So the next thing we want to do now is to start writing our pseudocode for this. Now, the question is that we should calculate the sum of squares of given input of numbers. We should calculate the sum of squares of given input of numbers. Now, in a normal programming language, that means we have to calculate the sum of each number that is given. So let's say we have 5 input of numbers. So have different 5 input of numbers. For instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So we're calculating the sum of squares. So that means it's going to be 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, 5 times 5, and then we sum them together. So that's calculating the sum of squares of given input of numbers. All right. So how do we then represent this in a pseudocode for someone to be able to know that this is what we are trying to do? Okay. So the first thing we will do is to write our pseudocode, and then we're going to start. So I'm just going to represent it by numbers. Now, pseudocode is something that anybody, there is no format that is acceptable by standard, but someone should be able to go through their pseudocode and understand what they are doing, and the flow should make sense. All right, should make sense in such a way that when you represent it in your algorithm or in your flowchart, someone is able to follow it to the end. So number 1, we're just going to start. All right, then number 2, now we're going to read numbers. So the input numbers, because now there's going to be numbers imputed. So just like in programming language, you're going to declare variable. So here we're going to declare variable by saying read. So we're going to impute, let's read just 2 numbers. So let's say we are expecting just 2 inputs. So we're going to read just 2 numbers. So we say something like read, let's say num1 underscore 1, comma, num underscore 2, comma, and then we'll declare sum, because we're going to sum num1 and num2, the squares. Okay, so this is like declaring our variables, so to say, in an actual programming language. The next thing we're going to do now is to impute numbers. So we're not accepting input. So we're then going to say impute. So we're imputing. Remember, we are collecting 2 numbers which we have declared, so num1 and num2. So that's the 3rd step. The 4th step is going to be us squaring the imputed numbers. So we're going to square the imputed number. So we're going to square num1 and then we square num2. So we say square So let's just say square num1 and num2. Square num1 comma num2. So here we've been able to square num1 and num2. And as you can guess, right, the next thing we can do is to get our sum, is to get our result displayed. So we say display sum. And then once we display sum, we can end our program. I guess this is very simple. So that is it. That is it. So we've been able to represent what we want to do in a pseudocode. All right, in a pseudocode. So we are squaring given input of numbers. Remember that we're expecting 2 input in our program, and the 2 input we are expecting, we represent them with num1 and num2. We represent them with num1 and num2. So we start our program, and then we declare our variables for the program, which is num1, num2, and sum. And then we ask for input, and we got input for num1 and num2. And then we square num1 and num2, and we display the result, and we end. So that is how simple it is to write your pseudocode. Just trying to explain to whoever you're doing a project for that this is the flow of the project. This is what we're intending to do from your statement or your problem statement. This is what we're intending to do. And this is that. So once that is done, what do they say we should do? We have to share this. So go to share. Then anyone with the link, copy the link, and then go back to your project and paste the link. All right, so we're going to paste the link here and save. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is to now create a flow chart. We have to create a flow chart. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So to create a flow chart, we're going to use draw.io, draw.io, draw.io. All right, to create a flow chart. So let's create new diagram, and let's just give it a name, and we'll give this squares of number, or let's just give it the exact name. Let's give it the exact name. Being a square keeps you from going around in circles. So being a square all right, so we're going to create blank diagram and then create. So I want to put this in a folder. So before you can put in a folder, you need to first of all create a folder in your Google Drive. So I have this folder created, ALSSE, select, just to organize the work. So you can create a folder first in your Google Drive, and then you put this here. Fine. So here you see that we have our symbols that we used, that we explained before now. So let's just start so we don't make this video too long. The next thing we need to do now is that we're going to start a flowchart, and to do that, we'll start with the ellipse, remember? So here, so just double click here, and then you're able to to write in it. So the first thing is to start, remember? So here we start our project. The next thing we need to do now is to start a process. And then after starting a process, we will accept input. And to start a process, we're going to use a rectangle. All right, double click inside. So from our pseudocode, we say, so let me show us from our pseudocode. We say read num1, read num2, and then sum. So what are we going to do now? We're going to start the process by declaring these three variables. So we're going to say, number one, read num1, comma, num2, comma, and declare our sum also. All right. The next thing we will do now is to bring our shape for input and output. Okay, input and output. So let me just drag this a bit to make it a bit longer. Yeah, double click to be able to write inside. So now we're going to ask for input. All right, remember we're going to input num1 and num2. So we're just going to ask for input by saying input. So let's call these variables. So input variables. And what are variables? Num1, comma, num underscore 2. So here we have our variables imputed. So let's now bring our process diagram or shape. So this is our process shape. Now we want to give a process again. Sorry about that. We want to give a process again. So we are saying that now we have imputed numbers. The next thing we will do from our pseudocode is to now square the number. So we're going to square num1 and square num2. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to square num1 and then square num2. So we'll say square num1, remember, by num1. So let's use the ampersand sign, double ampersand, and num2 by num2. All right, so if this makes sense, so we are squaring, remember we are squaring the number, so we have two inputs. We are squaring num1 by num1 and num2 by num2. I just have to put this and to explain it, to make it sync. All right, you can actually do without the and, since it's not an actual programming language. So this ampersand, double ampersand, is like and, in actual programming language. Okay, so the next thing we need to do now is to display our sum. All right, from our pseudocode, display sum, and after that we'll end our flowchart. So to display sum, remember that we are going to use our standard input and output shape. So double click inside and we're just going to say display sum, and after that we end our program. I'm sure this is super easy. Okay, so after that we just say end. So let me make sure this is straight, this is straight, this is straight, This is straight. Okay, now let's pick our arrow. So pick our arrow and then sorry about that. Let me drag it away first. Yep. Then pick our arrow. So this is our directional arrow. Okay, so I'll just duplicate it using Ctrl D. Duplicate again using Ctrl D. Duplicate again. Duplicate this. So and then let's pick this. So this is just to show the flow. All right. Now we have our flow chart ready for the first task. So now we can use our snip tool. So we can use our snip tool. Snipping tool is default if you are using Windows. So I will just pick my snipping tool and then screen grab. So I will just screen grab this now. Alright, I'll screen grab this, then I'll save this. So let me save it to downloads, and let's give it the same name. What's the name again? Copy. Okay. And let me just indicate that it's a flow chart, so that we have it different from the pseudocode. Okay. So now we are done. The next thing we need to do is to come to our drive and then upload so we have our what's it called again, our pseudocode here. Just to be sure. Oh, sorry guys. Now, because we already saved this directly to our Google Drive, don't even need to snip that that diagram, because we already have it here. All right. You remember when we were trying to go to draw.io, we included our Google Drive, so that makes the jobs easier for us rather than snipping it and then trying to upload it. We have it here. So what we just need to do is to give access. So let's share it. So that makes the work easier for us. So, but if you are not able to add it to your Google Drive, then you can snip, then upload it to your Google Drive. So here we just change the permission, and then let's copy our link and click on done. So we'll go back and paste our link and save. Cool. So we are done with our question 0. Now let's go to question 1. Question 1 says to develop an algorithm that reads in three numbers and write them all in sorted order. Okay. So we're going to create an algorithm in a flowchart, save it, and then we'll also create a pseudocode for it. All right. So let's say we should write an algorithm that reads in 3 numbers and write them all in sorted order. So we're going to accept 3 numbers, and then we're going to sort them out, either by descending or by ascending. So either by saying 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1. So in either ascending or descending order, because we need to sort the order. All right. So let's begin. First, we'll begin by picking a Google form to help us write our pseudocode. So let me pick Google Docs. So this will help us to write our code. Okay. Let me just copy the name of the project from here. And then let's paste the name here so that it's not untitled. And let's also paste the name here. All right. So let's start writing our pseudocode. So I like to number my pseudocode, and I will start. So same thing, first we need to declare our variables. So we declare the variables we are using, and let's denote them by saying we have variable A, comma B, and comma C, since they say we should add 3 numbers and then sort them. So A, B, and C. So let's denote them like that. So A, B, and C can represent 10, 20, and 30, 100, 200, and 300, whatever. All right. So A, B, and C for denotion. And then the next thing we're going to do is now impute those variables. So impute variables. And what are the variables? A, B, C. All right. Now, here we're going to have conditional statements. All right. So if you're just starting out, these languages might be a bit strange, but nothing too serious. It's something that in the next few days you will begin to embrace. So now we're going to use the if statement. So the if statement is saying that if it's not red, let it be blue. If it's not blue, let it be white, something like that. If I'm not in the house, then I should be in the office. If I'm not in the office, probably I'm in the church, something like that. Okay. So we're going to use an if statement and say if, and I will just open a bracket. Like I say, this is pseudocode, so you can write it the way you feel. All right. So you mustn't do it this way. I'm saying if AB is greater than C, I'll close my bracket, and I will say if AB is greater than C, let me use step 5. If AB is greater than C, what do? Just print the result. So print result, and print it in this order. Print it in this order that A, B, and C. So, if AB is greater than C, that means the order is that A is the highest number, followed by B, and followed by C. So print the result in this order because we are sorting the results. So print the result in this order that A, number 1, is the greatest number or the highest number, followed by B, and then C, because obviously if A is greater than C, B of course is greater than C. So B comes first before C. Okay. So the next thing, we are going to look for sort another condition until the whole condition, the 3 conditions are complete. We will say if, let's open a bracket again, B and C is greater than A, what should we do? Print result. So we're going to print result, and we will say, what's the result now? We're going to say B, result should be B, C, A. Sorry, this we need to have comma here because there are different variables. Okay. The result should be B, C, A. And then the last condition, if C, A is greater than B, we print result. We print result and say that C, A, and B. And then if that happens, let's end our program. Okay. So here there's a comma, A, B, B, C, there's a comma, A, B, there's a comma. Okay. So let me zoom this out a bit. Okay, so look at our program. So what we did was to declare variables A, B, C. Remember, we are sorting 3 numbers. Then impute variables A, B, C. All right. And then now we impute these variables A, B, C, and then we give it a condition. So the conditional statement is that if A, B, in that order, is greater than C, print the result the way it is. So A is the first number you print as the highest number, followed by B, and followed by C. And then the system runs again and check. If B and C is greater than A, what will happen? Print the result, B, C, and A in that order. And if C, A is greater than B, print the result in that order, C, A, and B. Now look at this. At each of this loop, sorry, that is big English. So at each time this program runs, okay, at each time this program runs, 1 out of the 3 variables is the highest number, 1 is the middle number, and 1 is the least number or the smallest number. Let's see. The first time the program runs, you see that is A, B, and C. So A was the highest number, B the middle, C the smallest. The second time the program will run again to check. B now is the highest number, C is the middle number, A is a list number. And then the third time the program will run again, C is the highest number, A is the middle number, and B is the smallest number. So by the time it meets any of these conditions, what will it do? Print the result in that order. Print the result in that order. So that's how we're going to write a flow chart. So it's printing the result in the order of which the variables were sorted. Okay. If that makes sense, let's go ahead and give access and share our link. So let's give access to anyone with a link. And let's go ahead and copy our link. Done. And then let's paste our link. Okay. So now we're done with our pseudocode. The next thing we need to do is to draw a flowchart for this pseudocode. We need to draw a flowchart for this pseudocode. Remember, we're asked to do the both pseudocode, flowchart, and pseudocode. All right. So let's go ahead and do our pseudocode. We'll go to our draw.io. So here we need to draw.io. We need to pick a new tool for drawing. So create new diagram, and let's give it a name. So this is the name of our diagram. Copy. Okay, so blank. We're creating a blank diagram. So let's add it to our folder, which is ALS.sc, so that we don't need to snip and upload, which makes too much sense to me. All right, guys, great. So here we are in our draw.io. As you get right, the first thing we're going to use is our ellipse tool. So we pick our ellipse tool, and here double click, and we start. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do is to bring in our process diagram, and in our process diagram we are just going to declare our variables that we are using. So we declare our variables A, B, and C. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is to now accept input. So let's bring in our shape and accept input. Double click, and then just impute A, B, and C. Okay. The next thing now is to bring in a conditional diagram, which is a diamond shape. Okay. So we start by saying if B and C, if BC is greater than, or let's start with AB so that we don't confuse ourselves. If AB is greater than C, let's bring an arrow. We're going to say if AB is greater than C, if that is true, that means it's going to print the result, and it's printing the result in that order, which is A, B, C. So let's bring our output diagram. So remember, this is input and output. I will make this a bit smaller. Then double click and say print result. And in the order is A, B, C. Okay. I need to bring in our test shape. Test. So if it's yes, or if it's true, either true, yes, or true. So let's use test, because let's use true, because we're software engineers. So if it's true, print this. So let's also include this. Okay, let me see. Okay, duplicate. All right. Let's duplicate our test also. So if it's not, we're going to give it another condition. So if it's not, so let's say if it's false, all right, we'll give it another condition. And here, let me just duplicate this. So if it's false, let's give it another condition by saying, so do this. So now it's going to be if B, C is greater than A. That is, if that is true, what should happen? If that is true, what should happen? Let's bring our shape also. Duplicate this and bring it here. So I'm just typing Ctrl D to duplicate. So print result, and we're going to print it in that order, which is B, C, and A. But if that's not true, if that condition doesn't hold, let's give it another condition, which is the last condition, remember? So Ctrl D to duplicate. If that condition is not true, let's give it another condition and say if C and A variables are greater than B. If that is true, what happens? So this time, we're ending the program, so we can say, let me copy this first, no? This, duplicate this. So we're ending the program here. Let's bring this duplicate. Let's delete this. So we're going to say if you print the result in that order, which is C, A, and B, and we'll go ahead and end Ctrl Z. Okay. So end. So this is our flowchart. Here, let me reduce this. It's looking too big. So I'll duplicate this and bring it here, and I will explain to us. Okay. So let's copy this, duplicate. Okay. So let's go through okay, I need to do this also, Control G. This doesn't seem, it doesn't seem straight, so let me try to straighten this. Okay. So our flow chart is ready. So we start, we declare variable A, B, C. We impute variables A, B, C. And then we give this a condition and say if A, B, C is greater as if A, B is greater than C. If that is true, print the result and end the program, because it's just to sort the numbers. So now we are sorting the numbers and saying if A is greater and B is the middle number and C the least number, print it out like that. So if this condition is true, print it. If it's false, move and check the next condition will give you from the three variables that were imputed. If BC is greater than A, print the result in that order. If it's not, move to the next condition. If CA is greater than B, print the result. And once you print the result, end. Now, one of these conditions must be true, and the program will either terminate here, here, or here, because one of the conditions must be true. At each point, one number will be greatest, the next number will be in the middle, the next number will be the least number. So if it's not here, that means it's here. If it's not here, that means it must be here. All right. So if, for instance, the number imputed is 1, 2, 3, and let's say 1, 2, 3 is denoted by ABC. So at this point, if we say if 1, 2, 3, or if we say 2, 3, if we say 2 is the highest number, 3 is the middle number, and 1 is the least number. All right. this condition will not be true because actually 3 is the greatest number, not the middle number. So what will happen? It will not print. It will come down and check the next condition. If it checks the next condition and 3 is still not the highest number, it will certainly come down here. And of course, here, 3 will be the highest number. All right, so that is how to represent this. And once that is done, what do? We go to our drive. Let's go to our drive. And here we have our flowchart that is waiting for us in our drive. So these are flowcharts. So let's share and give access. This video is getting longer, but I'm sure that you are getting something from it. So let's go and paste our code and then save. Then let's do our last task. All right. So our last task, same thing, same approach, same process, nothing changes. Our last task is say it is not enough to run. One must start in time. So what did they say we should do? They say we should calculate a running sum. A user will enter numbers that will be added to the sum, and when a negative number is encountered, stop adding numbers and write out the final result. Okay. So we're going to start a program for, of course, for ALS, we're going to be doing C programming very soon, where you will see what scanf is used for. So scanf simply is to print user inputs. Yeah. So when we run this program, we're going to say a user should impute number. So for each number a user input, it will be added to the total sum. So we can start sum with any number. Sum can be 100 from the start of the program. So when a user input 10, it will add 10 to 100, that will be 110. When the user input 20, it will add 20 to 110, which is sum, that will be 130. So until the program encounters a negative sum, that is, if the user inputs a number that will make the sum become negative, then the program should stop running. At that point, it will terminate. All right. So let's try and see how we can create our pseudocode and create our flowchart for that program to run. So first of all, we'll pick our Google Doc. Okay. We'll pick our Google Doc. So let's copy the name of our task. So for each task, you need to create a new Google document. And I'll also input it here. All right. So here, remember, we'll start. So let's start our program. Then the next we'll do is to set sum. Let's set what sum will be from the start of the program. Is sum going to be 100? Is it going to be 0? Is it going to be 1? So we'll set sum. And then the next thing is to impute a number or impute variable. So let's say impute a number to be clear, since it's not a programming language, it's a representation. And then we're going to add number to sum. Plain English, add number to sum. And then let's give it a condition that if sum is less than 0. We're going to say print, just print result. Then we're going to say, let's add the else statement. Else, we're going to say, go back to step 2. I will explain that. Go back to step 2. And yeah, we just end our program. All right. So this is it. If once the user imputes a sum, if the sum is, if you add the number imputed to sum and it's less than 0, print result and end the program. But if not, then go back to step 2. Okay, it's actually step 3, sorry. It's actually step 3. So go back to step 3 to impute a number. So you go back, add another number. If the number is added to sum and it's not less than 0, of course, any number less than 0 is a minus sign, it's negative, yeah? It's negative. So if it's not less than 0, go back again to step 3 until it encounters a minus sign, a minus number. The program will keep running. That is the question they ask us. A user will enter numbers that will be added to the sum. And when the negative number is encountered, stop adding numbers and write out the final result. So once a negative number is encountered, stop adding numbers. So whenever the user imputes a number and you add it to sum and you print the result and it's a negative number, the program ends there. But if not, then go back to step 3 and keep adding numbers. I hope this makes sense. I just hope it makes sense to us. But that's like the best I can explain this. So the next thing we need to do is to share the link and then give permission. So let's give permission for someone to be able to use the code. Done. I'll go to my tasks now and then I will paste this. Now let's do the final leg, which is creating a flowchart. So draw.io to create a flowchart. So let's pick the name of our task, copy. So create new diagram, paste the name here, pick a blank diagram, then let's put it inside that same folder in our Google Drive, ALSSC. Okay, so this is a very simple program to write. Remember, we start. Let me make this a bit smaller. Double click and start. So let me pick my arrow already. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is to pick the process diagram. And what do? We just set sum. So we're going to set sum, and then let's say call sum, let's say we'll call sum and say sum is int 1. So integer 1 or num1, any one, either num1 or int1 equals to 0. So we are setting sum from the beginning to be 0. Let's duplicate this and bring it down. And then we're going to ask for input. So let's bring our input shape. And we're going to say input a number, scanf. So we're accepting a number. So let's call the number int2. All right. So we'll call the number int2. And let's say int2 is equals to -1. Okay. So you can you can keep adding numbers if you want the program to go and go and go and go and go, but I just want to end the program immediately. So we just impute a number. So let's copy this and then let's give a condition. Okay, let me just drag this a bit. So let's give our conditions. So we just say if sum is less than 0, that is, if sum is less than 0, what happens? The program should stop running. Let's bring our test this thing. So if this is true, if this is true, it should print results and then end the program. So let's bring in this first before we end the program. So if this is true, what happens? Print result. Let me copy this or duplicate this, duplicate. Then we end our program here. Now, this is it. So what if it's not true? What if it's not true? What happens? Let's bring an arrow. If it's not true, what will happen? We need to have a condition for that. Because if it's not true, then the user needs to keep inputting numbers until it encounters a negative number. So if it's not true, we're going to say ask the user to add, prompt the user to add to keep inputting numbers. So I'm going to add and say print user input and then add to sum. So here let's copy this and say if this is false. If this is false. So let's bring our arrow. Okay. And let's bring another arrow. Okay. So I'm sure this is clear. So if this is not true, if it doesn't hit a negative number, what will happen? It should print user input, then add it to sum, and then go back again and run the loop for the user to impute a number here. Remember, user is supposed to impute a number here. So if the user imputes a number here again, it comes here and check, is this number less than 0? If it's not less than 0, if you add it to sum, what happens again? It goes back again. So until the number is less than 0, it will print the results and end the program. All right. I'm sure this is clear. Okay. So let's go to our Google Drive and see our flowchart. Then let's see our flowchart. All right, so this is our flowchart. Let's give access by sharing it. So anyone with a link, copy the link, done, and let's add it. Okay, guys. So here, we've come to the end of our task. We've done justice to this. I'm sure that I've been able to help you understand the concept of flowchart and pseudocode. If this video was helpful and you want to keep getting content from this channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Also leave a comment if you have any comments, or you can just appreciate us in the comment box. Give us a like also and share our video. Thank you for staying to this time. See you again in your next task. Bye.